want to say that, I'm a migrant in the UK.
Yep.
Okay. And the reason I'm here is because I think that in the UK, there were some opportunities that were absent in Greece.
Were being the operative word.
Yeah. And I never came here to defraud the UK. I said, okay, I'm here. I'm pursuing these opportunities. If they work, I'm staying. If I'm asked to leave, I'll be asked to leave. It's as simple as that. But there's also another issue because, very frequently people may think that it's weird for me to talk about immigration, but it's not, because I'm from Greece, as I said, and Greece receives a tremendous amount of migration pressures. And basically, it would be completely hypocritical to me to think in different ways and apply the same principle differently when I'm talking about the UK. So I'm going to talk about the UK, and I'm going to talk about a very weird case, because it seems to me that this is a case where people try to defraud the UK. And this is something we should definitely talk about, because very frequently we hear, whenever we hear about migration, we constantly have the demonization of people who are against mass migration on the one hand, but we also frequently have the sort of sanctification of people who try to migrate, and I'm against that. And very frequently, the rhetoric that goes against that says that I want to migrate and please open your doors to me. Very frequently, it is misleading. It is an emotional rhetoric. Frequently, it talks about horrors of war and abuse and all sorts of this. But sometimes, just because people say it doesn't mean it's true. And we're going to talk about one of these cases that seem to me definitely be a case of trying to defraud the United Kingdom. Before we do this, let's go to visit a website and check out the latest Comics Corner.
Yeah, speaking of criminal enterprises, it turns out that if you review the early history of the comics industry, it might be funded by the mafia. I wonder if there are any analogs here. I'll leave it at that.
I don't know, but I think that, you're putting a lot of work to this with Harry. It's part 1. And I really like your series.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
And I'm waiting for part 2.
Well, you're also waiting for us to cover Batman and Robin, which won't happen, but Stelios just wants us to do it so he can make Mr. Freeze references the entire time.
Yes.
Simple joys in life.
Right. So with only £5 a month, you can gain a membership to Lotus Eaters, and you can have access to all our premium content. So by all means, just help us and support us to give you our news. Okay. Now, let's go to this story that seems to me to be a bit preposterous. Now, before we talk about the 2 lawyers that received an enormous amount of money, and that basically they've done this, they receive an enormous amount of money to make false asylum claims. Let us see some asylum statistics. This is from the UK Parliament, from commonslibrary.parliament.uk. Okay, so research briefing. It was published on Wednesday, the 1st of March, 2023. Okay, and it says here about asylum applications. Okay, now there's a trend, and there is a sort of, sorry, where is it? The number has tripled in the last decades.
Right.
So it says here, proportion of all migrants who are asylum seekers and refugees. Asylum seekers made up around 6% of immigrants to the UK in 2019. In 2020, when overall immigration was lower than usual due to the pandemic, asylum seekers might have made up around 12% of immigrants. Sorry, I said decades before. It's 4 years. Sorry. In the year ending June 2022, the latest period for which we have estimates, asylum seekers and refugees made up approximately 18% of immigrants to the UK. This includes arrivals under the Ukraine schemes, the Afghan relocation and resettlement schemes, arrivals in small boats, other resettled persons, and arrivals on family reunion visas. Around 190,000 individuals in total.
I love how they just smuggle in, Ukraine, okay, temporary stay. Afghanistan, well, you might be able to excuse the people that helped us out and the British forces over there while we were occupying it, and they're fleeing the Taliban, so sure. Hong Kong, okay, well, Britain might screw that one up, and we want to get them their homeland back eventually, yep, sure. Albanians crossing the channel, wait, what? Those are just exactly the same as the people that whose houses are getting blown up or their family members murdered by the Chinese government, are they? Yeah. Thank you, you insidious liars.
And by the way, there is a policy now. I don't know if you saw it, late news, that there is a kind of UK policy to send back, say, prisoners from Albania to Albania, and that will cost around £4 million.
Yes.
They're going to send it, and the justification is that these £4 million are basically less than the amount of money that would be paid for these prisoners being housed in UK prisons.
I could fire them out of a cannon at midnight for far cheaper.
There's another issue here, though, that, I think that it's wrong to see this just on economic terms, because, if we just say, okay, it's an economic win-win, that could give the message to several countries to say, okay, well, let's export the bad apples.
Yes.
They're going to be caught in England.
And they can't deport them all.
They can be deported. They're going to be caught in England. They're going to be sent back, and they're going to be and there are going to be money for that.
Yes.
So that's a possibility. I like thinking realistically in politics. There are people who just think like bad people, and they try to constantly make profit out of this all the time. So just saying this. Now let's go back to the topic here. So it says, if including the British National Overseas Scheme in the category of humanitarian routes, up to 25% of immigration in that year would fall into that category. So from 6% of immigrants being asylum seekers to the UK in 2019, we moved to
up to 25%.
18 to 25%.
Yes.
Now, decisions and refusals, you have here several, data you want to see. The percentage of asylum applicants refused at the initial decision reached its highest point at 88% in 2004.
Too low.
Since then, the refusal rate has been falling overall and was at 24% in 2022, its lowest point since 1990.
Also, as well, if your claim fails, you are entitled to appeal and stay in the country while your appeal is processed. So they're still here. They're just stacking up.
What happened in 1919 or the 90s?
In 1997, something happened, according to Tom Harwood, and then magically immigration shot up. Did that something happen have the name Anthony Blair by any chance? That would be interesting, wouldn't it? Can't answer that question.
So, nationality of asylum seekers and refugees. In 2021, 42% of applicants were nationals of Middle Eastern countries and 23% were nationals of African countries. This pattern shifted in 2022, with the largest nationality groups being Asian countries, 31% of applicants, and European countries, 24% of applicants.
It's almost like there were other countries on the way they could have stopped in if they were actual asylum claimants.
Right. On to our news now, because if you have seen this story, it's preposterous. Let's see what happened. It says, lawyers charging £10,000 to make fake asylum claims. Special investigation exposes staff at immigration law firms briefing clients on how to lie to the authorities to win the right to stay in Britain. So basically what happened, from the Daily Mail, some, let's say, reporters went to the offices of these lawyers, and they pretended to be people seeking asylum.
It was an undercover sting operation.
Yeah,
yes.
And they heard several really interesting things. Now, it says here, lawyers are charging thousands of pounds to submit false asylum and human rights claims for illegal immigrants. Staff at solicitors' firms readily agreed to help an undercover male reporter posing as an economic migrant get refugee status. This was despite being told he had no legitimate reason to stay in the UK after arriving on a small boat. VP Linga Jyothi, this is the name of one lawyer, asked for £10,000 to invent a horrific backstory to use in the asylum application.
In the video, he just says, I'll make something up.
Yeah, we'll show the clip.
Yes.
It says this included claims of sexual torture, beating, slave labor, false imprisonment, and death threats that left him suicidal and compelled to flee to the UK. The legal advisor promised he could get a doctor's report to back up the story, and produced antidepressants to be given to the Home Office as evidence of psychological trauma. Now, let's watch the clip.
On the part two of your case, why you can't live in India is you are a, we can say that the Indian government accused you of pro-Khalistani. You were taken to custody, arrested, and you were ill-treated, tortured, sexually tortured, and that's why you couldn't marry, and you were frustrated, you wanted to commit suicide, Atmahatyam.
Yeah.
Then your family send you here. Please listen to me. You may not support Khalistan, you may be a very pro-Hindustani, but I'm only telling you a story. They put him in modern slavery condition. They wouldn't go out. He has got to stay in a roti, pani, everything is given to him there. He has to work in hard labor, breaking and working in the building sites. He can't escape. His passport, everything is taken away.
Right.
And they went into Punjab and they threatened the family, if you don't give the money, we are going to do this to him. And also, when they kept him in a brothel, he was cleaning the toilet and looking after the prostitutes and all that kind of thing. And then these girls are from Eastern Europe. This guy is working there more or less as a nanny for the women. I've got some psychological problems.
Right, we can pause this.
And we get a psychiatric report to say that you may do Atmahatya if you don't.
So you can get the psychiatrist report as well.
I also have some medicines.
Oh, great.
If necessary, I will give him some medicine to show it to the immigration to say he's taking these medicines.
What is it? Paracetamol?
No, it's Citlopram.
Okay.
It's an antidepressant. I was a former medical student before I went to law.
Ah.
Right. Okay. So basically, what happened here? We had an undercover journalist who went and pretended to be an economic migrant who came to the UK from let's say, a boat. And he says that I have no legitimate reason to stay here. And the lawyer tells him that basically, I will make you up a story. Now,
what?
What do you make of it?
Are you asking? Well, it shouldn't exactly be shocking that this is happening because the asylum system has been gamed for ages. We saw with the Liverpool taxi cab bomber, for example, where he was convinced to pretend to convert to Christianity in order to stay in the country. People will just cheat the system if it's excessively permissive, and also you will have, if you're allowing lots of people in here, and there's a reason these men running this firm are Indians speaking to other Indians because they understand the particular situation going on in India. Again, Indians, not a country that is currently at war, just like to point that out. And so they can appeal to the liberal sensibilities of the people in the Home Office who are very universalist and excessively compassionate and ideologically driven and leverage their specific cultural knowledge to import their friends or fellow countrymen if they have high in-group preference by making up the most compelling and extreme story that someone from the Home Office not from India would not be able to vet. So you've got essentially ethnic extortion rackets existing in the UK to transplant an entire population from one place over here, and the legal system is just permitting it.
Exactly. And there's an important aspect of the asymmetry of knowledge, for instance, because you said that they are talking about different countries. The people who are but how much knowledge do you have to know that India is not at war?
You could probably just open your phone or look at a map.
Yes, you don't need much knowledge. But the point here is that there is also the taking money to fabricate, within quotation mark, evidence. So who is making this this piece of evidence? If he's talking about antidepressants, it means that there are other people inside it. Somehow, this person takes money, and I'm sure that perhaps some people might be getting money in order to produce these pieces of evidence. Okay, so this person, he boasted a success rate, I think, of more than 90% with similar such cases. And a third outlined that he's finding ingredients of an asylum case. He said that he could use it to make it appear the reporter feared his life in India, as he said. Okay. So they say that, basically this is a very rich lawyer. He has, I think, a Mercedes or a BMW with his own plates. And
Yeah, he's just rinsing the British taxpayer for his own lavish lifestyle.
Yes. So let us move here, see, because this was an incident that many people saw. We have Rishi Sunak.
Yes, it caught the
your
Prime Minister's
favorite
attention. Yeah, this is a very interesting thread because it actually goes through how he is allowing the problem to continue to exist, but pretending to do something about it.
Exactly. And that's where I want to hear your opinion. So Rishi Sunak says, this is what we're up against. The Labour Party, a subset of lawyers, criminal gangs, they're all on the same side, propping up a system of exploitation that profits from getting people to the UK legally. I have a plan to stop it.
Sorry, Rishi, you've been in the government, your government, 13 years now. Again, Peter Hitchens is definitely not a fan of me, but he did say the other day, someone responded, imagine what happens when Labour gets in power. And he said, they have been in power since 1997. This is a Blairite government. And under the Conservatives, record migration, not just illegal, as we've seen with the statistics, but also legal, net, 1.1 million. If things continue as they have, with migration being the leading cause of population increase in the UK, because the birth rate is so low, and you are immiserating domestic indigenous Brits to the point where they can't have their own families, but still increasing the population through bringing in the third world. Migration Watch has already calculated you're going to need 15 to 18 new Birminghams to accommodate the amount of adult migrants that arrive here. How is that acceptable? I'm less scared of the Labour Party than if I would be if you'd done anything good about it. You haven't.
But let's see what he says. He says, first, I recently passed laws that will mean if you come to the UK legally, you can't claim asylum, you can't misuse your modern slavery protection, you can't make false human rights claims, you can't stay. These laws go further than any government has gone before. Now, I take issue with this because it's what we said before. The people who are in charge of institutions are more important than the institutions in a way. Because any institution that we have, it is people who are in charge of it, and people can take advantage of it or not, or they can honor it. And I think that, when he says, it doesn't make much sense what he says here. So say you can't claim asylum if you come to the UK illegally. But there are all these asylum claims for so long.
But we'll be overruled by whatever international commitment we're still tangled up in, like the ECHR, which he still hasn't gotten rid of. And if he wants to get rid of the ECHR, he said he'll fall back on the UN's 1952 refugee declaration. And in the phrasing of that, it says a refugee is anyone unable or unwilling to return to their country. Yeah, just don't feel like it, mate. That's fine. So unless you disentangle us from the UN, please do. They're an evil organization. We're still going to be keeping the commitment that keeps these people coming in. That's why nothing will change with this.
Right. So, he says, second, I've secured the largest ever small boats deal with France, which will see 40% more patrols on French beaches.
So that's more people that can stand on the edge of the beach and wave them goodbye as they come over the channel.
Okay. So let's go here. Here is where, for instance, fury as the Bar Council attacks Rishi Sunak after the Prime Minister criticized immigration lawyers exposed by the Mail as trying to help migrants falsely claim asylum.
So they're covering for each other because they know there's a lot of money in doing it.
Check this article if you're interested. Now, let's go here. I want us to watch this clip from GB News. Yeah.
Yep.
Let's just what is this bloke called? Let's name him. This lawyer that you went undercover to expose. He's called what? He's called VP
Linga
Joyce.
He lives in a large house with a Mercedes with personalised
and
number plates.
He asked for 10 grand.
Yeah.
To create this horrific backstory.
Yeah,
Nigel, this is appalling.
It is appalling, and certainly any lawyer who's doing that should be struck off.
Exactly. That guy should never work again after that front page of the Mail.
One lawyer in this investigation has already been fired, which is quite right.
That's right.
The Solicitors Regulation Authority is looking into it, also quite right. I think the only important thing to say is it doesn't mean all immigration lawyers are doing things like this.
But it's this guy's not here to defend himself, so we don't know. But the bottom line is, this is what a lot of people think about a lot of these lawyers, because the people coming on the boat, they come across with nothing, they come across with no papers.
And come on, Nigel, don't you? We all know that a lot of these lefty lawyers actually lead people into these cover stories.
No, that's going too far.
Quite different.
We don't know that.
No, they do it because they want to give them, because they believe anyone who arrives here has the right to stay.
Yeah.
And they give them, they've got briefs. They get Twitters, they get messages saying, say you're a sex slave, say you're gay, say this, and then you will not. We can't deny that.
Hiring all immigration lawyers.
No, I'm not.
No, I'm not saying all of them.
I'm not. There's probably 3 that are decent.
But it's a great industry, isn't it? The human rights industry.
Okay, so I deliberately wanted us to end with this.
Yes.
It's a big industry, the human rights industry.
Some of them, I assume, are good people.
Yeah. So what I want to say is that, again, you see how the event is getting covered. So we have let's say, some preposterous news. We have people who rush and say, no, not everyone is like that. Okay. But there's an issue here. The issue is that context matters. Imagine what would happen if some people, they just said, if these reporters, they just wrote an article that said that there are people who do this and they didn't have the video. What would the response be? The response from all other people would be that, these are, far-right, racist xenophobes.
Yes.
So it's not enough to make some claims now that, we're sorry. Yeah, this is preposterous. These people should lose their license, because the whole thing is to be able to pose these questions in the first place.
You also need to circumvent their framing with direct video evidence, which is what James O'Keefe has been very effective with, formerly at Project Veritas, now at O'Keefe Media Group, by exposing people from Pfizer and BlackRock and the like, by just catching them on dates professing to being evil.
Exactly. And what Rishi Sunak was saying before, that, it's illegal to make false human rights claims. Well, they have been doing human rights claims for so long, and they were getting away with it. But the whole notion here is, how do you verify a statement? That is why context matters, and that is why it's important to tell people that it's not extreme to care about national identity. It's not extreme about caring about your country not being defrauded in these ways. So that's what I'm saying. That on the one hand, it's not enough for Rishi Sunak to say that I passed legislation,
yes,
but keep operating within that system.
Yeah, because
within that system that prevents you from posing these questions and talking about them in the first place.
And also, if you have extra national legal requirements that will overrule your legal efforts to stop it, I hesitate to believe you're actually trying to stop it if you don't disentangle yourself from that. And if you're only operating in the harm mitigation framework, as you said earlier, of where you're making a cost calculation to say, it's fine if we let them come over because it's going to be less expensive to eventually deport them than it is to put them up for £7 million in a hotel and climbing every day.
Exactly. Right. And just, I want you to see this last link here. And, if you want to see migrants housed on barge to get free festival and cricket excursions.
Oh, you're having a laugh. For the floating prison, they're going to take them on day trips.
First 50 migrants due to take up places on the BB Stockmill in Portland, Dorset next week. You see, it's a really weird article. Just by all means, go and read it.
They're on the taxpayer jolly. Great. I'm really glad I'm paying for that.
And
yes, Migration Watch. That's a good one to end on, actually. They currently have a petition to end mass migration to try and leverage certain politicians, including the New Conservatives, who have put out a proposal to lower mass migration by a number of about 400,000 minimum. The only frustrating thing is, of course, that it's good to get a start on petitions, but they can eventually just ignore it, as they have with every single manifesto where people have voted for lower migration and it hasn't come to fruition.
Exactly.
Thank you for watching that segment from the podcast of Lotus Eaters. If you enjoyed, why not check out our website, where you can get the podcast live from 1 o'clock on weekdays in full, for free and uncensored, as well as getting, for as little as £5 a month, all of our premium content. For example, Beau's series, Epochs, where he goes through certain historical periods, like this episode with Carl, where he talks about the Battle of Blenheim, which is in the Spanish War of Succession. If you'd like to find out all of the content we're putting out, you can follow Beau on Twitter at @HistoryBro1 and the rest of us at LotusEaters_com. Until next time, goodbye.